unless we stop making machines smarter and smarter, they will become so capable that there's really nothing we can do for money because there's always a machine that can do it cheaper, better, and faster.
I wouldn't mind being an artist, and maybe the human created art or food will drive up the price, to thousands of dollars per hour. Because welcome to AI with Bry, the podcast where we dig into how to learn, leverage, and lead with AI. I'm your host, Brian Denstead. I'm a technologist, strategist, and someone who's endlessly fascinated on how artificial intelligence is changing the way we work, create, and even imagine the future. Each week, I sit down with people who aren't just talking about AI, but they're living it. They're shaping it and helping the rest of us understand what it really means. And today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Calum Chace. He's an author, speaker, and one of the clearest thinkers on the future of intelligence, both human and artificial. Calum's books include The Economic Singularity and Surviving AI, where we explore how automation and machine learning could redefine our economies, jobs, and ultimately what it means to be human. His insights help us see both the promise and the pressure of a world driven by intelligent machines. And he is the CMO at Conscium, an AI safety company, and we'll unpack that a little bit later. So this episode is where we're explore where AI is taking us, what it means for society, and why the most powerful thing we can do right now might just be staying deeply intentionally human. So welcome to the show, Calum. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for inviting me, Brian. Pleasure to be with you.
I want to dive into the learn part of our conversation. You've been studying and writing about AI for years, but talk to me about what have you learned lately about AI recently? What's something that shifted or deepened your view about where AI is taking us?
I suppose the big thing I've started thinking about lately is artificial consciousness. Most of my views about where AI is going haven't really changed all that much for 25 years. We can get into that if you want, but in the last couple of years, I've started to think seriously that artificial consciousness, might have an important part to play in the AI safety story. And I was prompted to think this by a friend of mine, Daniel Hume, who set up a company called Conscium and invited me to be a co-founder, which I am. And Conscium is an AI safety company. We do a number of things. One of them is to explore whether machines can become conscious, when that might happen, how it would happen, and whether we should like it or not, whether it'd be a good thing or not. Conscium does some other things. We have a commercial product called AI Agent Verification, which is about making sure that agents do what they're supposed to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that's a fascinating topic, and I think there's many different areas to explore with that. The philosophical, the chemical, defining consciousness, and then how do you unpack, is it artificial or is it real at a certain point? That sounds like a whole 2-hour episode all within itself. But it's something deeply worth really thinking about. Yeah, I don't know. Do you want to unpack that just a little bit more?
Well, let's
what some of that looks like.
Let's quickly knock off consciousness, why don't we? So it's really hard to define, but it's hard to define rigorously. But actually, we all know what it is. It is the business of experiencing. It's different from intelligence. Intelligence is, broadly speaking, is the business of problem solving. Consciousness is just what you experience, and we don't know. We are pretty confident, although quite a few people disagree, but we're pretty confident that no machines today are conscious. But as they get more and more sophisticated, more and more powerful, there's really no reason why they wouldn't become conscious. We have existence proof of consciousness being possible in ourselves and in animals. And there's really no reason why a different substrate might not become conscious as well. And it's really important because if and when machines become conscious, firstly, we must avoid mind crime, which is the process of killing, torturing, imprisoning, enslaving conscious entities over and over again, and doing it by the billion. Mind crime could be the worst thing we ever do. And I have a pet hypothesis, I won't put any stronger than that actually superintelligence, which again we might want to come on to, if and when we get superintelligence, if that is conscious, that might be the best chance we have of having a great future with superintelligence, which I think is possible, as opposed to a terrible future with superintelligence and possibly a short one, which a lot of people also think is possible.
It's really, really powerful. And I'll tell you, and I think my audience already knows this, but I'm vegan. And so we are enslaving 100 billion animals every year and killing them, and they are conscious. And so it is something that we're already doing as a society to people, to beings that we think are less than us. And I think that's the age old question we're worried about. Will we live in harmony with our AI and be symbiotic relationships of some sort? Or will they think of us as less than and use us like batteries in the matrix? So that's the ultimate question for sure. And it's something, gosh, I think I want to do like a philosophical episode, and I'd love to have you back where we can talk about this in more depth. But I really appreciate the beautiful way you explained what consciousness is and stuff. I'm interested also in like the economic side of this too, because it's a different twist on the whole thing. And I think you've written extensively about the economic singularity that we see fastly moving towards us, the point where automation replaces human labor to a degree. Has your thinking evolved on how the LLMs are advancing faster than I'm imagining they would, and how quickly that turning point might happen, and what does that mean?
Yes, I would say my timelines, like pretty much everybody else in the space, have collapsed a little bit. I still don't think that we are 2 or 3 years away from it. I heard Sam Altman on a podcast again this morning saying that something like superintelligence will be with us in 2 or 3 years. I just don't see that as being likely, but of course he's in a much better position to judge than I am.
That's right.
But yes, I have wrestled a lot with the issue of, will we get to the point where machines do all the jobs, so there's no jobs for humans? And can we make that a good thing? I'm pretty convinced that we will get there. I don't know when. My guess is probably 10 to 20 years. I know a lot of people would think that's ridiculously far out, and other people will think it's ridiculously near. But I think that unless we stop making machines smarter and smarter, or unless there's some kind of silicon ceiling that they can't get beyond, then they will become so capable that there's really nothing we can do for money, because there's always a machine that can do it cheaper, better, and faster.
Yeah.
At that point, we're going to need a different economic system, or at least a heavily adjusted version of our current economic system. Because currently, almost all humans earn their daily bread by working, by doing jobs. And if there's no jobs for humans, obviously that's got to change. It should be possible to have a wonderful future in a world with no jobs, because although many people who think about these issues really enjoy their jobs and get some degree of meaning out of them, most people around the world don't really enjoy their jobs. They do it to put food on the table. It might give them some structure in their day, but they don't really get meaning out of it. They don't really enjoy them. So a world where humans don't have to do jobs should be great. It'd be a world in which everybody gets to play all the time, and learn and explore and socialize and have fun. That sounds like a really good world. But what we haven't even begun to think about is how we get all the wonderfully rich resources that machines are creating, the fabulous wealth that they're creating, how we share that around everybody. I mean, to put it bluntly, at the moment, AI is a duopoly between America and China. In fact, it's a duopoly between California and China. And it's not immediately obvious that the owners of the big tech companies in America, if we get to the economic singularity, are suddenly going to say, hey, Somalia and Britain and Iran have free income. We love you all. I don't quite see that as being, the automatic first step. So we really need to think about this. And it never ceases to amaze me that almost nobody is, because it might happen quite soon.
Yeah, I agree. And it goes back to like, I don't know. I heard somebody say the meaning of life is to figure out the best way to enjoy the passage of time. And I just loved the way that was described on that front. And I wouldn't mind being an artist or a chef or doing something that I love to do, and maybe the human created art or food will drive up the price to thousands of dollars per hour because the machines can do it for pennies. But yeah, it's such an interesting way to look at it. So some really, really great insights there. And obviously we could keep going down that rabbit hole, but I want to switch gears to like the next segment of of the podcast, which is really leveraging. Like, so how are you in your day-to-day world? Like, AI is inevitable. It's going to be like water and electricity and refrigeration and everything else. We all have to embrace it in some fashion, or we're going to be forced to, or we are thinking we're avoiding it, but we don't realize behind the scene our cash register is using AI to calculate things. Like, it's going to permeate society. How are you leveraging AI in your day-to-day life and work, and where are the biggest opportunities for humans to work with AI rather than to be replaced by it?
So I suppose I'm doing two things with AI. I'm not an enormously sophisticated user of large language models because I'm not a programmer. I don't come from a technical background. So I use GPT. That's my LLM of choice. I'm aware that other brands are available.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it a lot. I use it all the time. I use it for, searching for information. It has not entirely, but largely replaced Google search in my life. I use it to help me draft things, simple things. If I'm writing something a bit complicated, I'm editing a book at the moment. I've got to produce 3 chapters for this book. So that sort of thing I do myself from scratch. But I get it to critique my writing work. But more simple writing, I might actually get it to do the first draft. I also write travel books, and I often get it to do the first draft of that. I ask it for advice sometimes. I do a lot of kind of how to. So it never ceases to amaze me that if something goes wrong with my dishwasher, I can tell it the model name and what's gone wrong, and it will by and large tell me exactly how to fix it. Even if it's as simple as using some WD-40 spray to fix the problem. And I even get relationship advice from it, actually. If I have a row with somebody, it's quite good at helping me avoid doing the thing I know I probably shouldn't do.
That's right.
And
That's right.
it's good for that. So I use that an awful lot. And then the other sort of involvement, practical involvement I have with AI is, as I mentioned earlier, AI agents are all the rage, have been for quite a while. I was in San Francisco a couple of months ago, and I was quite amazed to see billboards apparently aimed at consumers advertising agents, which it was an interesting example of how far ahead Silicon Valley is of the rest of the world. Anyway, agents are the big thing. They're pretty unsophisticated at the moment. Most of them are essentially knowledge retrieval with a little bit of flair. But they're going to get a lot more sophisticated. They're going to increasingly be using tools, software tools, and they're going to be working with each other and with us as colleagues. They're going to, be interacting with us and with each other in unstructured environments. Now, because agents operate to a degree without supervision, that's part of the whole point of them, and because they impact the real world, it's really, really important that people who deploy AI agents can be confident that the agent will do what it's supposed to do and won't do anything else. And one of the things that my company's doing is we're launching a service called Verify AX, which is the process of verifying that agents do that they do what they're supposed to do and they don't do what they're not supposed to do. We are doing some kind of pilot work at the moment with our investor, which is a big media group. And we are in advanced talks with various partners who are going to be the people that people go to in the first instance to seek assurance. So that's a very exciting and I think going to be very fast growing industry because agents are amazing. You can now use GPT in an agent version,
So powerful,
and it's really good. I've done some interesting shopping exercises. It saved one of the banes of my life. I'm sure we all have this: is having to renew insurance policies on houses and vehicles and things. And I really hate doing that. And now GPT does it for me, which is
that's right.
I'm very grateful for that.
Yeah, I mean, you've just nailed it. I mean, I think we're worried about the environmental impacts and things like that of the AI, but it's inevitable. It's getting cheaper and cheaper on those fronts. And the power of agents, where you give it to that main orchestration agent and it figures out the right expert agents to spin up and help accomplish the task. Like if people haven't played with that kind of AI yet, please do experiment with it because it's extremely powerful. I mean, sticking one last question on the leverage segment here is what is something that we talked about in the learn portion is really like you're often saying the future is going to depend on how we're sharing the benefits of AI, and like leveraging AI is a key component for any company, society, culture, country, whatever demographic group you want to lump in on that, to share it and leverage it and grow forward. What are some practical ideas or policies that excite you to help motivate sharing, or and help companies adopt it and embrace it? Like, I see two worlds of things as I come in as a CTO to these companies. If the CEO is like, no, I'm anti AI because it's not going to help us yet, or yes, we're doing it, but so the first one is the companies are off, the employees are secretly using it and they shouldn't be. And then the other one is like they've embraced it, but they haven't really rolled out the tools and trained people the right way. But it is all about how do we leverage the AI and share those benefits. And, if you want to expand on that for me.
Yeah, so you're right. There's been like a twin track process going on with large language models. The bottom up process has been quite quick, and I imagine most people, most of your audience, I'm sure, but also most people who hold down reasonably well-paying jobs will have tried large language models. And when they first appeared, when three and a half came out, and then when four came out, I often heard people say, "Well, I tried it. It didn't do what I wanted, so I haven't tried it again." Because
Mm-hmm.
it didn't do exactly what they wanted. They were kind of expecting it would be like having a colleague, a human colleague,
Magic.
and yeah,
Yeah.
magic. And they're kind of magical, but then they weren't magic enough. But I don't hear
Yeah.
that too much anymore. Now, I give a lot of talks about AI, and I always ask the audience, how many of you are using it? How many use it every day? How many use it several times a day? And nowadays, almost everybody says, or almost all the hands go up for using it several times a day. So, clearly people are using it at work. And some employers will hate that because they can't control it. I think a lot of IT professionals will hate it because they can't control it, even though they're probably using it themselves. But there's no going back. People are using it. What's been much slower to happen is enterprises being able to adopt models on a company wide, on an organization wide scale, and that's partly because of hallucinations, and it's partly because of fears of privacy. Well, the hallucinations haven't stopped, but they've got a lot less difficult, a lot less common. Um, and privacy is, there are ways of dealing with that. So things I read now suggest that most organizations are using AI and starting to use it at scale. Are starting to see commercial returns from it. So I think it's happening. And I do love it when I speak to a friend or an acquaintance and say, show them what GPT can do, and they go, "Wow!" And then hear from them a week or so later saying, "I love this thing. I'm using it all the time."
I'm down the
Um,
rabbit hole. Yeah.
yeah. My partner is an interior designer, and she teaches other interior designers how to run their businesses because, like a lot of professionals, interior designers are great at design and rubbish at business.
Mm-hmm.
And almost all of the people that she works with start off saying, "Oh, I don't like AI, I don't use it." And then she shows them how you can use it. And of course, in design, you can get it to make images of properties, before and after images, and you can get it to design furniture and all sorts of
Mm-hmm.
clever stuff. And they get hooked, and it's a joy to see them getting so enthusiastic about it. So
Yeah.
that's a great pleasure.
I agree completely. I haven't found a business that there isn't an AI use case for, but it's just their ability to change and their ability to teach their employees how to use it. That's why this leveraging AI is so important. Like, people have to figure out how to leverage it in their business. So, but I loved how you you kind of twisted in there in your reply, like, we're trying to use AI to amplify human creativity and capabilities. Like, I think that's the underlying theme you were getting at. It's not just efficiency, it's a vision that's practical and inspiring for us to try and adopt. So let's dive into this last segment about leadership. As you mentioned, you've spoken to audiences all over the globe about choices we have to make as AI grows more and more powerful. Leadership is the heart of this. This is the last segment, and is what I'm trying to do with this podcast, and to help the CEOs that I get to work with. How how do we help the leaders? Like, what kind of leadership do you think this moment really calls for?
Probably now more than ever, what leaders need to do is to give people tools and encouragement and then let them get on with it. Because the tools that we have available now as people working in organizations are so powerful that we can do a lot more than we used to be able to do, and we can be much more creative, and we can do a much wider range of things. I mean, 50 years ago, well, let's say 35 years ago, 40 years ago when I started work, you really could tell somebody, you could specify what you wanted them to do during the day, and then they would go through those steps and report back at the end, and you'd say yes or no or whatever. I mean, I was in the position of being told rather than the position of telling back then.
Yeah.
Nowadays, that just wouldn't work because the kind of businesses that we work in these days and the kind of tools we have, you have to be a lot more flexible. And each individual person has to have a lot more initiative. So I would guess, I think leadership has got less directive and more enabling. I'm slightly biased because Daniel, the CEO of Conscium, is a quite remarkable leader. He will not tell people what to do. He makes a suggestion, and if you think it's a good idea, then he'll discuss with you how we can do it. If you don't think it's a good idea, he won't make you do it. He won't ask you to do it. And it's a very interesting approach to leadership. I hadn't really come across that before. But I think he's onto something important. I think increasingly people need to be given the space, given tools, given an overall direction, and then allowed to get on with it. And obviously, corrected if they go wrong.
Absolutely. And I think I was just reminded of this a couple of days ago with one of my staff members, because they came to me and they said exactly that. Brian, I wish you would just spell out A, B, C, D, and I'll go and do that. And I said, but my job as a CTO isn't to tell you what to do. It's to teach you the framework on how you make the right decisions or the right recommendations to me. I try to punch holes in your theorems and make sure we're both aligned so that you can go off and execute that because you believe in it. If I just tell you something and you don't believe it, like to exactly what your CEO's point is, like if you don't really think it's the right choice, like how if I tell you to do it anyway, like it's going to be not as good as if you believe it, so like there's something to that. And that's where I think we have to level up our employees, because we're now all managers of our AI agents. And if we don't know how to manage and lead the AI agents, because you've been just told what to do over and over, like there's something to key in on there in a big way, I think. I'm curious, you go ahead, you can react to that. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I play a little game with Daniel where I try to get him to make a decision and tell me what to do. And he won't. I haven't got him to do it yet. I won't stop trying.
I've found that I'll make a decision when I'm hungry. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a little bit agitated or whatever because I can feel my belly growling. So I'm like, okay, let's just make a decision so I can get off this call and go eat. But yeah, try hungry.
He's always hungry.
Yeah. I'm curious, like, because you've thought about this a lot more than I've been able to. Like, talk to me about like what ethical responsibilities come with the leadership in this age of intelligent machines.
Well, I'm going to take that as a question about what the people in the big tech companies should do. And I think they're in a really fascinating position. So if you were Sam Altman or Demis Hassabis, you're running one of these organizations, should you be propelling humanity as fast as you possibly can towards superintelligence? Personally, I think they shouldn't. Superintelligence could be completely wonderful. It could. I think if and when superintelligence arrives, I still think it's probably either going to make us godlike or it's going to end us. It's going to be the end of the human species. And that's quite risky. And these people, Altman and Hassabis and others all have P dooms above 10%. And you wouldn't get on a plane with your family and all the other members of the human species on a plane and, merrily take off thinking it's a 10% chance it's going to crash. So I'm kind of puzzled as to why they are doing this, why they're racing us towards this future. I don't think it's because they're greedy, selfish, money-grabbing, SOBs. I don't think that's true of them. I think probably they think chances are it'll be okay, but that's still too much risk. Maybe they think that it's going to happen and it's better if it's introduced by them than by somebody else. But that's a
The
that's a
arms race.
terrible
Yeah.
that's a terrible position to hold. There's a story about if you know there's a madman running around your neighborhood and they're going to kill your children, you don't go and kill your children yourself. You try to stop the madman. So I'm puzzled as to why they're doing what they're doing. I think I have signed the latest Future of Life Institute letter saying that we should pause the development of the most advanced AIs. We shouldn't stop making self-driving cars. We shouldn't stop a lot of the AIs that people are using. We shouldn't stop developing those. But superintelligence, I think probably should pause. However, the way I disagree with the likes of Future of Life Institute and so on is I don't think we are going to pause. I think there's no chance whatsoever that we will stop. So we're on a very interesting journey.
Yeah, and it's interesting. Like you trigger all these things. I would love to just continue talking with you all afternoon here. It's the question around, like, we're in some sort of arms race, and we feel like if we don't do it, China will, as you pointed out, and or this other thing of, like, I'm a big science fiction nerd, and it feels like every future utopian science fiction show has had society go through some sort of AI war, whether it's Terminator or even Star Trek had to go through its AI, battle. Star Wars mentions it with the little bolts that they put on the bots. I mean, every one of them addresses it in some way on how they're controlling the AI. So it's just a really powerful thing, and I do agree. I wish that we could unify as a society. On the other side, though, like, I did read an article yesterday how that they think that the universe might end in a big crunch in 33 billion years, and we're 19 billion in. So we only have another handful of billion years until we're going to be wiped out in the big crunch anyway. So lots of big things to discuss, right?
Maybe superintelligence can figure that out. There's actually a story about that by Stephen Baxter. I can't remember what it was called, but he talks about how very advanced AIs are going to spend their time trying to figure out how to stop the big crunch. In fact, I think they do it by going to a different universe, something like that.
Yeah. That's so exciting. Yeah, and I'm just fascinated by the concept of AI might be able to help us launch Van Neumann probes to help humanity learn as much as we can too. So I want to pull it back to leadership with my last quick question here. If you had to define, like, AI ready leadership, what qualities would you kind of put at the center? Is it like curiosity, courage, compassion? Like, how do you define a really strong, forward looking AI leader?
Um, an AI leader or somebody trying to use AI in their place of work, I think it's mostly about encouraging people to explore and collaborating in intelligent use of it. Management is basically about being a decent human being with purpose. So, be honourable, be truthful, be encouraging, be supportive. And the specific thing about AI is to just encourage people to use AI more insightfully than they already are. The most important thing all of us can do at the moment is to get as profound an understanding of what AI is able to do and isn't able to do as we can, because AI is increasingly going to be informing and quite quickly running a lot of our lives. So we need to be familiar with it, really familiar with it.
Absolutely. I mean, I love that. It's leadership bridging technology and humanity. It's not really about, like, predicting the future perfectly, but it's about guiding people through the way it helps bring clarity and empathy to the table, right? It's something along those lines. So, Calum, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Tell us a little bit more about your company one more time, and how do people get in touch with you?
So Conscium, the name comes from consciousness because the foundational idea was that artificial consciousness, the possibility that machines will become conscious, could be an important part of the AI safety story. Conscium.com, so it's CONSCIUM.com, and the agent verification service the website isn't up yet, but it will be fairly soon. But you can get to it from Conscium. So if you're thinking about deploying AI agents, and if you're deploying AI in an organization of any scale, I'm sure you will be. Have a think about how you're going to make sure that your agents do what they're supposed to do and don't do what they're not supposed to do. And verification is the answer, and Conscium's the place to get it done.
I love it. Well said. Calum, your work continues to challenge and inspire the way we think about intelligence, progress, and what's next for humanity. So thank you again so much for sharing your time and your insights with us today.
Thanks, Brian. It's been a lot of fun.
To everyone listening, if today's conversation sparked something for you, I'd love for you to follow AI with Bry. Please leave us a quick review or share this episode with someone who's curious about where AI is taking us. You can find more of Calum's work, including his books, talks, and latest ideas. I think it's at calumchace.com, correct? And then I will make sure I put Conscium's URL in the show notes because it's a tricky one to spell, and check out Conscium as well. Again, I'm Brian Denstead. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, remember, the future doesn't wait. So learn, leverage, and lead. This episode of AI with Bry was hosted and produced by me, Brian Denstead. Produced with help from Nancy Velasquez and Kelly Lopez. Video by Leo Moralina. Sound AI generated. Find us on all platforms at AI with Bry and visit ai.bry.net for more. Learn, leverage, lead.